invite external MSSP or handle it professionally with the tools what you have. And between the tools and technology and the value created, there is a gap where you need to fill as well with people and processes and knowledge. So I'm focusing on this part, sharing practical examples in order to inspire all of you take action and create professional CSIRT, Computer Security Incident Response Team, or SOCs Security Operating Center. So the objective is to demystify CSIRTs and SOCs because the definitions matter, the words what we use matter, and if you Google the definitions, you might get confused. And as well, I'm going to clarify the model of CSIRTs and SOCs and how you should look at them, and hopefully we can have small discussion in the meantime at the end of the session. Okay, so myself, I specialize in CSIRT SOC establishment and modernization among the countries, many countries where I worked in doing so, for governments, for sectors, for particular organizations. And besides doing all other activities in different international associations. And the company I work for, it's NRT Cybersecurity, based out of Northern Europe. There are some flags you can see where we're active in our work. From Afghanistan, alphabetically, there are 200 countries in the world. It starts from Afghanistan, finishes Zimbabwe. So I already worked in Afghanistan, and now I really want to work in Zimbabwe to cover at least the scope, and then many countries in between. So when we talk about security incident response, we often use different terms which are on the screen. For me, the easiest way to tell others what we should think about IT security team, which works in incident response, so detection and incident response, in well-formed and organized way. And that's why the generic name what we can use is Computer Security Incident Response Teams, which is synonymous basically with CSIRT, Computer Emergency Response Team, which is older name, and you still need up till today to get a permission to use it because it's trademarked. CSIRT, Cybersecurity Incident Response Team, quite many new sites, especially supported by World Bank projects and some other donors, or working with ITU, International Telecommunication Union. The teams are usually named CSIRT. PSIRTs are created in the companies which create products, and then a particular company like Cisco can have several CSIRT teams. One is PSIRT, taking care and handling all the reports about the incidents and vulnerabilities in the products. Then there's a CSIRT, which takes care of the security of the office networks and operational environments. And there could be even cloud CSIRT, to my knowledge as well. There is a third one in Cisco, which takes care of the cloud offerings, what we provide, and security in these environments. So what I want to mention, that all these teams have particular mandate which defines what are their responsibilities, what are their authorities, and what resources they get. So ISAC, as such, we are formal in US, in Europe and Africa. I think we are more informal per definition, but we focus on information sharing and analysis center. That means that we focus on rather not incident handling, but rather sharing the relevant information amongst stakeholders. As well, Security Operating Center, it is either known as SOCs, Global SOCs, Joint Operating Centers, is a partial operational model of CSIRT, primarily focusing on internal monitoring, detection, and triage. So when somebody says SOC, they mean that there's some networks to monitor and some data centers to monitor. So when do we need such teams? In essence, I feel that there's only two main reasons why somebody should have them. Because otherwise you can just run your IT security team and you don't need to bring into such maturity as a CSIRT or SOC. So one is, when attack hits, is there a skilled team ready to respond and handle the incident in internationally accepted incident response method? from communication protocols, naming something TLP red, and being able to encrypt the particular relevant keys information not to be spread or disclosed inappropriately, to how to classify incidents and how to partner. And second reason, so the answer is yes or no. Is there a skilled team on whom you can rely? It can be internal team or it can be external, as previous speaker was telling about MSSP, Managed Security Service Provider. As well, another reason is cybercrime is international, and when you are hit with some badness, you need to cooperate in order to resolve it and get out from it with least impact, and that's where you need to be trusted by others. That means you need to be known. Doesn't matter from which organization you're joining here to listen. So, okay, so the reasons why we need to build, but now who should have? Okay, because maybe I want, because I believe I have a reason, but maybe I do not satisfy particular requirements. So the requirements are usually how I see it, but the teams, organizations are substantially digital. That means either we process a lot of data, and all of our organizations process more and more data, especially if the information is sensitive, personal, financial, and etc., or automates processes heavily, so from manufacturing to logistics and other areas, or maybe utilities, energy, and so if you automate processes, then they digitally can be attacked or disturbed. That's why you need to have a team which is monitoring security as well as running incident response. And the third and fourth, they are a little bit different. Third one is usually if you are part of critical infrastructure, then by the law you're obliged to have a particular setup, and more countries are requiring then for critical information infrastructure operators to have SOCs or CSIRTs, formal or informal, but that's part of the requirement. Alternatively, if you are in government particular sections where you are susceptible to the cyber threats, especially the national cyber threats from your neighbors, from the usual suspects, North Korea, China, Russia, US, or maybe some European more tough countries, then you as well have to build such organizations to assist to handle these cyber threats. I hope it is clear. Now, in overall, how does it look like? So on the top here on the screen, we say this is the political level, this is on the country, national cyber capacity. Here it's cyber literacy, cyber crime laws, including partnership of law enforcement around the world. Besides Interpol, there's a Budapest Convention which says what is cyber crime, how to define it, and how to call other police officers on 24/7 lines. Cyber defense is growing topic for military to defend all aspects, not only physical land, but as well cyber land. Cyber diplomacy is how to deal with all kind of cyber issues. Critical information infrastructures and protection. The protection is what I just mentioned in previous one slide, and cyber law and strategy, how we approach. So every country goes in these topics and develops on their own speed. And then usually in cyber law and cyber strategy, saying that there's a maybe national set, maybe a sectorial set, or maybe if you're from a private organization, then the board decides that, okay, CISO has to have technical instrument, which becomes SOC, which handles their, towards the constituency, which can be internal, for example, business units, like in the bank, it could be credit card business units, loan business units, corporate banking, or it can be different constituents in the sector, etc. So for incident detection, coordination, and resolution, in order to protect digital assets, basically applications and networks. And for this team, as we talked before, that international recognition helps a lot because of modernizing and keeping up with the good practices of running these operations, trusting, learning from each other, and being more effective without just paying more or asking suppliers to help you. But you can do a lot of things by yourself by being members of these international associations like FIRST.org. In Africa, you have Africa CSIRT, which is regional organization. As well, if you're not national CERT, then partnering with national CERT always helps, having a model of cooperation, either MOU, either by the law you're obliged to do something, as well as partnering with law enforcement agencies, intelligence agencies, private organizations, research organizations, where you can learn and cooperate in order to increase resilience of your constituencies whom you serve. And if we look in Africa, not so many teams, according to first.org model membership, are there. Yeah, and so my objective in life is to color this map. So there's a bigger color in South Africa because of that. Here I colored something here in Northern Africa as well. I'm coloring and working on it as well in here around Nigeria currently. Yes, so then we think about CERT or SOC. So I already mentioned that there is, at first, there is a mandate. So somebody says, okay, we agree either national level, either in organization of the board, we're gonna exchange particular amount of resources because we need to pay for facilities, for salaries, for knowledge, for setup, for technology. So we exchange resources provided into responsibility and authority towards handling these issues. And then this team, the SOC or CERT, they have to operate in a service model because that's most effective way of working. Because if you think alternatively, it could be function model, but when you function on functions, you cannot put SLAs, you cannot put performance on function, you can put only on service, as we know from IT management, but ITIL, it works as service catalog, and then the particular SLAs and etc. So the map, what kind of services can be delivered by SOC or CSIRT. There's a 80 pages document on first.org services model framework, 2.1 version. There's a link below. You're gonna have the slides on it. So there are 5 areas where such teams are working. You are not obliged to take everything. It's according to the mandate what is issued by the governance body, by the board, by CISO, by the policy of the country. It starts from what you look into events and you identify incidents. So this is what CM, SORs, and different technologies are doing, as well as external monitoring. Then from here, we identify incidents. The objective from these activities is how to better identify incidents, cybersecurity incidents. The incident handling relates in this one, information security incident management, where it's from report acceptance, analysis, could be forensic analysis. If your internal team, then mitigation and recovery. If you are sectorial or national team, then could be advice on mitigation and recovery. As well, for sectorial or national teams, a lot of work is being done with incident coordination. If incident goes up and escalates a lot, then it becomes crisis management question. So there's crisis management support. Then as well, another area is the vulnerabilities. So typically what you do in scanning and patching and discussing, prioritizing, it's in vulnerability response. But as well, there's very relevant activities, how you communicate out what others should do if you detect a vulnerability in your infrastructure, disclosure. If you are involved in coordinating of some vulnerabilities in your networks or other places, then it's coordination, understanding what is this vulnerability about this analysis. The report intake is to understand and clarify what actually is being reported, and yourself doing research and discovery as well can be one of the services. Then situational awareness, this is area what we talk as threat intelligence and related activities which support other activities, including vulnerability management, including over here in incident handling. It's collecting relevant data sources, could be external, could be from private, public, commercial feeds, etc. Then trying to make sense of it, analysis, synthesis, and then communicating it out, either to external constituency or maybe as well to internal teams as well. And final part, it's knowledge transfer, that how we build internally for our constituents awareness, because in doing all these activities, we understand how to strengthen through a behavioral change of our users, or being more aware, or having some skills, including training, education, exercises, as well as technical and policy advisory, where, for example, how to procure more secure technologies in order not to have issues later on, including third-party issues, etc. So there's even more details. Each of the service goes into sub-functions, etc. And currently what we do in first.org, we are building the competence model and role model, what kind of people should work over here, how the task will look, how to prepare a competence. It's work in progress because it's all volunteer work. I'm one of the experts contributing hours every second Monday in the afternoons, and in between doing some homework. What is important to understand when you're building CERT and SOC, and then we're talking about the incident classification. So there's another link which is relevant. It doesn't matter if it's ENISA, if it's European, doesn't matter. It's international community discussed and agreed on model how to classify incidents. So when we say we're going to handle incidents, what kind of incidents there could be? There could be either abusive content, particular type, there could be malicious code, there could be information gathering, there could be intrusion attempts, or there could be intrusions. There could be availability issues. There could be information security content. There could be some fraud from phishing, copyright, and other things. There could be vulnerabilities, and there could be other. This methodology is accepted internationally now as the best standard how to classify the incidents that you work on. That's why, for example, when we talked about vulnerabilities, then we work with them. Sometimes it can be treated as incidents because there's a category for that. And it's a human-readable format, what I copied from here, but as well, we had a lot of tools who can process such information. So for you, when you think how to classify incidents, I suggest to use this one as a good practice because it's internationally accepted. And you can modify how you want if it doesn't fit. It's nobody forces you to do such one, but it's already a body of knowledge which is for free, what you can use for what you want. So when we say SOC or CERT, quite often it is particular at least these sets of services what are natural to do. For example, CSIRT, usually we don't operate the network themselves. So that's why we don't do monitoring, but we register incidents and work on that. There could be different size of CERTs or CSIRTs. It could, and the establishment of them from 0 to hero, it might take as well different timeline. As well, to operate such team requires a number of people, a number of capabilities. So mean is just formalizing what you have right now. The processes, procedures, and then basic is establishing more processes. Effective, it's bigger team from 7 to 15 people. On full scale, that's a national framework set up with sensors, with all capabilities. So here it can be under 100,000, maybe it's $50,000 value. Here it could be million value projects, and over a few years. How to build one? I want to draw again your attention to ENISA's work, because in ENISA it's about almost 30 countries in Europe, where and European Union wants them to grow in and build a better cyber resilience. So naturally, there's a lot of methodologies issued and work done. So here's one of the newest methodologies which you can download. The authors is me, myself, and my team, where it shows that you can start when thinking from assessment for readiness, and these are artifacts as objectives for you, what you should have as a consequence of this stage. And then you focus on design, thinking about the services plan. So which services, according to the mandate, what you got, you should work, how these services have to go into processes, and workflows, then what organization skills, training structure, facilities where people are going to sit, and should it be more secure place? Maybe it's in the same room as NOC, maybe it's a different place, etc. Then only then we think about technologies, because then we know the services, we know what kind of people are joining, then we say, okay, what we're automating to what level, and what part of the budget we spend on a technology. So the challenge is that most of the SOCs and SOCs especially are pushed first this one. I'm going to buy CM, it's going to be good for me. But how, for which services, how it's going to integrate, what map is going to look like, it's not focused on this lack of knowledge how to think globally from the value creation. Because here we say that if we exchange resources into value creation, we always have to think about this perspective. The next step is you have only own your resources, but you can rely on some other team's work, maybe national team, or if you're a national team, maybe on sectorials or community. So you start thinking about cooperation with your neighbors, other countries, similar organizations, say, how do you work? You get free advice, or maybe you share how you do it, you learn, your competence grows, you're more effective. As well, maybe you see how others are using particular technologies, which already you have, but you just don't use to that extent. So cooperation, or maybe during incidents, if you need to call and say, guys, we see this, maybe you see it as well. So cooperation is very, very crucial in that way. As well, the SOC and CERT technologies have to be, and operations have to be managed as any other IT and security processes. Finally, all of these plans in design has to be run and implemented. People needs to be trained, and then you have to celebrate. Important part, celebrations, because now you're live and running, and everybody is expecting from you to perform. You're a new team. You don't know exactly how everything will work, so you need to manage properly the mood and expectations and cooperation and warmness in the community. So it's not only about the process, about approach. And in operations, then you run through KPIs and then annual operations performance review, stakeholders needs review, saying, okay, you gave us such resources, we created so much value. If you would give us more resources, that kind of value creation could change. And then you can have business discussions, not technical discussions that we need more EPS in CM or we need another person, but rather what capability, what service improvements we can do in order to deliver for the as a value to the stakeholder, and get approved the annual budget for next year, how much money we have, and then you plan the improvement. You have a lot of ideas what you're going to focus on. So basically this schema and all the document works in talking what you need to focus on, which aspects for each of the deliverables, as well. What you, if you're existing set, you can just jump in here, but you start working from listing what you're dreaming about improving and then prioritizing them, getting approved. And then you do from here, from the improvement, you run into design. So you see what of the artifacts has to be improved while you're running this improvement plan. So even this SOC or set establishment can, if you already have operations, can start from here. You say, okay, we are structuring everything and running it. And then for the maturity of itself, there are two at least models. One is SIM3, the simpler one, what you can go and do it in 30 minutes, but you're gonna probably, by even reading it, you learn a little bit more what it is, what is considered to be well-working set or SOC. And then there's a SIM3 model. So finally, what I would like to finish with is open questions, as we have a couple minutes of a discussion. So I want to inspire you to think, so what do you think, how many CSIRTs and SOCs should be in your country? Because my approach is the same, how many hospitals should be? Should it be one? Probably not. There should be many, especially if you think about hospitals and broader, like clinics, polyclinics, pharmacies, and other organizations. Suddenly you start feeling that it's about ecosystem. And how to build ecosystem, suddenly we get as well ideas in our heads how it can be approached. And then another thing is how different teams have to cooperate. So this is discussion points for you to contemplate on, and maybe there are some questions from the audience.